It's Monday here in the world, the Splash Play NBA, and due to some weird scheduling from the NBA around the NBA Cup, we only have one game today, two games tomorrow, I think 3 on Wednesday. It's a weird week of games. We're still going to be here every day on the Splash Play NBA channel, talking about the DFS slates, talking about the prop betting as well. Of course, we're going to do what we always do here. We're going to compare my originated projections to Stokastics. We're going to look at the ownership as well for today's one-game showdown slate between the Knicks and the Raptors. We talk a lot about Karl-Anthony Towns this one. He's questionable, and his status is going to be key for the slate. We're also going to look at some sim lineups via Stokastic. Of course, the simmed betting markets as well via Unabated, our presenting sponsor on here. And let's get into it. And this is going to be a leisurely half-hour show. But I think we're going to do today, we're going to build or look at our projections. We're going to build some lineups via the sims. They'll hop to Unabated. Will be out of here hopefully by like 4:40 or so. But Unabated's projections still coming out at 4:30 today, so we'll capture those in a moment. And get surprised to see a show today. You should be surprised here that I want to get paid on a week where there's still not a lot of games. So we're gonna do the best we can covering not a lot of games this week. Top projected players as of right now. Again, Karl-Anthony Towns is questionable. I actually wrote it up for DK Network. Pretty big differences in projections if you get Towns in versus Towns out. Huge ROIs as well, potentially. Jalen Brunson on Unabated, using their sim tool, was able to see there's about a 33% EV on Jalen Brunson's PRAs line if Towns is out. If Towns is in, though, everybody's a little bit mispriced anyway on the other side. So weird situation. But Towns, I have at 51.4 fantasy points today. Stokastic has him at 48.6. As we talked about all year, I am higher on Towns than the most projected systems are. It has paid off at pretty much every turn. Today, you are getting Towns second highest price in the slate, just behind Scotty Barnes. I would prefer him to Barnes. Stokastic, though, would have Barnes 0.3 ahead. So there's a decision point for the slate right away. For me, playing Towns is the move more so. Still got Towns a good amount in sims here, 40% in the flex spot compared to 43% for the field. Scotty Barnes, your number 2 guy. I'm a little bit lower than Stokastic here, 48 compared to 48.9. These guys, though, collectively about 4 fantasy points. For me, 6 fantasy points higher than everybody else. So Towns and Barnes feel like players need to be in most of your showdown lineups tonight. Again, showdown's a bit of a different thing than the main slates for DFS, where you have to be a little more mindful of just playing all the chalk guys. If one guy misses, that's how sometimes a lot of these players end up winning an NBA showdown teams. So, or tournaments rather. So that's sort of the main thing to keep in mind here. If one of Towns or Barnes fails, that's probably a good way to get unique. But right now, projection-wise, these guys look a clear cut above everybody else. They're also substantially higher priced than everybody else as well. RJ Barrett, I have at 42.1 compared to 39.3 for Stokastic, would be a better value for me. As a result, I'm getting him 47% in the sim compared to 30% for Stokastic. Barrett's usage rate, as I talked about, kind of warned about earlier in the year, when Scotty Barnes came in, I would expect Barrett's rates to drop down a good amount. That said, they've dropped a little bit, but not that much overall. Still have Barrett at a 29.7% usage rate. Last week, he was at 30%. So he's trickling down like percentage point by percentage point slowly, but he's keeping enough usage that he's still a very strong play. People tend to underplay him on slates because of the fact they do have Barnes better projected. Barnes and Barrett tend to go well together. So RJ Barrett, Stokastic is at 39.3. I'm at 42.1. So RJ Barrett in the spot, I think a stronger play for me and one that I will get more. Jalen Brunson, the exact opposite here. I've at 41.5 compared to 44.9. If Towns is out, he becomes an infinitely better play. For right now, though, I'd rather have Barrett than Brunson, and that does save me $600 as well from lineups. Let's see, with the Squirt Squad, be the Wet Bandits or the Sticky Bandits. Talking about, of course, Joe Burrow's resemblance to Macaulay Culkin on the thumbnail I had for the Splash Play NBA video this morning. And again, look, if Joe Burrow, if it's firing him up, is thinking he's going against Marvin Harry, and if he's going to start, heating up doorbells to go against the Cowboys tonight, why not? These teams aren't playing for anything real on Monday Night Football, so might as well just go silly with it. Some greased up door handles, hot door handle, everything. There's a lot of door handle specific things, I think, for Home Alone, if I'm remembering things correctly. Jakob Poeltl. So his minutes coming down a little bit here. Not quite as good of a play as he was early in the year. That said, it's still pretty good per minute. But you do have Kelly Olynyk back in. Kelly Olynyk, 6,600 in the showdown slate. Poeltl, 8,800. Poeltl's still a good play relative to those prices. Poeltl now giving away a good amount of the center minutes. Obviously, you still had Chris Boucher. You still had Mobo there. You still had Bruno Fernando, who they had playing center when Poeltl missed the game recently. You have a lot of centers in the mix now. So Olynyk getting his 17 minutes projection. He played 15 minutes in his return the other night over the weekend. Boucher, his minutes are coming down now as a result of Olynyk being in. But Fernando still getting allotted a minute. Boucher still getting allotted a couple minutes. Mobo getting allotted 17 minutes. Any of those guys get hot, they could take some minutes away from Poeltl right now, which is not the best. But that said, Poeltl still, I think, a good play on the slate. and maybe gets somewhat underplayed with a not great projection of 35.7 from Stokastic compared to 36.6 for me, but Pirtle to me, good play at that price point. This week's schedule is dumb. It is very dumb. It's a weird one. I don't get why they did it, but I guess you have to keep the flexibility because of the NBA Cup and whoever's playing. So the good news is like the NBA Cup games should be fun and competitive. But yeah, 2-game slates, 3-game slates all week. It's a week too where it feels like people's interest in the NFL is waning. So you kind of want to have good NBA slates, but we'll see what we get. Hopefully they at least have some of the excellent eights, $5 tournaments. I'm hoping. And yes, it is a showdown slate. Yeah, it's a Monday night football showdown slate and a Monday night basketball showdown slate here. And I don't know why, honestly, Knicks Raptors, not good enough to be an island game either, but they're playing it. Should we just go game by game from here? Let's sort by value real fast. We talked about the top projected players, so we'll kind of keep the structure here the same. And look, it's still a 50K to first place in the NBA showdown. The issue with NBA showdowns compared to NFL, they're a little more solved for 150 sets of lineups. So that's sort of the trade-off there. For an NFL showdown, all it takes is like for tonight's NFL one, if the Cowboys win in a way that like a Cowboys onslaught hits, that's going to win all the money. People won't necessarily play that in 150 set because they can't cover everything. For the NBA, you can sort of cover the moon and get everything going. So that's the trade-off. And yeah, we're going to go game by game. I mean, it's a different screen view is what I meant. Like, we have this one here where, you know what I'm saying? And then here it's sorting by value. But yes, it is still functionally a game by game, no matter what screen I'm on. The top value for me on this slate, guy who's actually getting some social media love by some of the basketball Twitter handles out there. Talk about what a great on-ball defender he's been. Probably the best in the league based on some advanced analytics. Davion Mitchell getting 21.5 minutes per game. He's a guy I like a lot more, to be clear, when you have Quickly out, in addition to having Barnes out, in addition to having Barrett out. There's nobody else around. Davion Mitchell looks like a lot better play. But for a showdown slate at 2,800, projected to get 21.5 minutes. I'm at 14.3 fantasy points. Stokastic actually has him higher at 15.2. He is your best value on the slate. He's also a guy getting somewhat reliable minutes. So it's not like your $200 tight end or pass catcher or RB on an NFL showdown slate like we talk about a lot. Mitchell's actually a guy who should produce a certain amount out there. So he'll come up a good amount in the Sims, I believe. He could be chalk, I think, based on this projection, the value at 2,800. But he does look like the best value on the slate right now is 5.1x, which you don't really see. Showdowns tend to be more around the 4x metric as opposed to the main slates, which are more every player who's good, who's like a quote-unquote good play, is like a 5x or so value. So that's how that looks. With showdowns, usually dumb luck. There was a guy I used to work with at Stokastic who's one of the social media guys who swore that he found a way to beat showdowns. And basically it was like, take out whoever the value play that comes up as the most highly owned. And basically just don't play that guy, like the one who's not getting reliable minutes. And then just play anything else besides that. And then I think he also said take out. It was a weird thing. He had like this set of showdown rules where he felt like he was getting a lot of EV and honestly did go on a hot run for about a month or so. I don't know if it held up much past that. You can figure out there are little quirks to showdowns. I think in general, the people overplay lower dollar captains a little bit too much, where like you really don't want to do that in an NBA showdown unless all the top players are going to hit for enough points. And even then you still probably want the highest scorer or, the highest scorer. It's also a decent value metric on him. So like Towns should probably be your captain option tonight. If you're not going to go to Towns, Barnes, Barrett, Pirtle, Brunson, like those guys be the ones you go to because they kind of have to get that same level as Towns has to get to, but ideally costing less money. Or, beating Towns outright like Scotty Barnes can. That's probably the biggest mistake people make with showdowns, and that and playing guys with totally insecure minutes. Like I think Davion Mitchell's a good play today. I think Miles McBride's a good play today because their minutes are sort of locked in. But if you're going to play like Jamison Battle here, like he could get 1 minute. He also could get 15. So that'd be sort of the trade-off there. But a lot of times if you were chalk, you're going to end up with that 1 minute outcome more. So really just being mindful of the chalk, I think, is the main thing for showdowns at NBA DFS. But I actually, I did have a good run in NBA DFS showdowns in the playoffs a couple of years ago when I was really racking it up and went on my like 100K run. There's a winnable thing. The thing is like good lineups are still going to chop 5 to 20 times. I think it's sort of the trade-off. But it's tough. Like it's tougher than NFL in some ways, easier than NFL in other ways. I think that's the trade-off. But if you're 150 setting, it's like substantially easier than NFL. I think a positive results if you're doing a 150 lineup set. Probably true for a 20 max as well. Karl Anthony Towns, still a good value for me despite the high salary. So he'd be a play. I'd have a really hard time fading no matter what, assuming that he does play today. Campaign, another decent value here. Certainly would look better if the Knicks ran away with this game. Still 14.4 minutes is the projection. He could produce well per minute as sort of the fill-in for Brunson whenever he's not on the court. OG Anunoby to me, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges is a much worse value. These guys are all kind of competing for the same situation. If you were to see Brunson and Towns fail, you might see all the wing guys be more likely to get there with Hart, Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges. But hard to love those guys. I do think Towns projects well. If I weren't going Towns' way, I'd probably want to go Brunson's way. Just like the Raptors aren't going to have good wing defense at all or anything to stop these guys for the most part. Towns maybe runs into some trouble rebounding against Pirtle. But like the Raptors defense is not going to do much to impede these guys. So really, to me, playing the key Knicks is the main thing. But if you did have the key Knicks failing, obviously the wings for the Knicks that are all interchangeable with Hart, Bridges, and Anunoby, you can just play whichever of those you wanted. RJ Barrett, talked about him. I like him a good amount. That said, he, Barnes, and Pirtle are all based on the same value metric to me. I'd prefer Barnes and Barrett. The one lineup I did before the show, which I'm probably just going to keep assuming Towns plays. I did get all three of Barnes, Barrett, and Pirtle in, so I think they're all valid plays here. If they somehow hang in with the Knicks, it's probably those three, maybe Grady Dick contributing about average of what the projection is, maybe a little bit more than that. But really the Raptors, I mean, only a 6.5 point favorite on the road, which kind of feels maybe like a no Towns line. If they're going to be competitive in this game, even if they just keep it within that 6.5 point spread, it probably means that those three got there relatively to the salary. So I think they're all worth comparable amounts of exposure, even though there's a bit of a separation here. Favoring Barnes, I'm favoring Barrett a little bit more, and Pirtle definitely the third out of the big three here with his lower minutes projection, really. Josh Hart looking okay. As talked about, he's one of the wings. Grady Dick is the one who doesn't project that well. Certainly has the upside. Put up almost 30 real life points over the weekend. He can do that on any slate. He's only 6,400. 25% flex ownership feels a little bit low to me. I think people jam in Grady Dick as their tournament play. Saying jam in Grady Dick does not feel good. It does not. That doesn't feel like good dick coming out of the mouth. But I think in this spot for Grady Dick, I think he probably gets appropriately played and maybe a little bit more than the projection is right now, just because of the fact that he's like your tournament scoring option that has a really reasonable price tag at 6,400. And I think people honestly, they'll want to play Anunoby. They'll want to play Barrett. They'll want to play, well, Barrett, it's a different price here. They'll want to play Hart. They're going to want to play all those guys more than Grady Dick, I think. But Grady Dick, a quarter of the field feels about right. And definitely a captain option you go to as well as sort of your mid-price guy that allows you to jam in some studs with him. And if he does hit that point ceiling, he can probably make it as captain. But I don't think that's sneaky necessarily. Jalen Brunson, the lowest projected for me, much higher for Stokastic. I'll get less naturally as a result, which I'm fine with. Brunson, I'm getting 28% flex exposure for the sim. Stokastic has him at 38. I think he's an okay play, obviously, but I'd rather have Towns, assuming that Towns goes. Again, if Towns is out, you got to bump up Brunson exponentially. And that's that. And now we'll go game by game here. And then we'll build some lineups on Stokastic, and then we'll hop over to the world of Unabated, get some prop markets in. So you can see all my sim exposure here compared to the flex ownership for the field. Captain ownership, I'm not sure how to show here because I'm not normally prepared for these slates like that. So let me see. Let me see if we have a Stokastic page to show you guys. Because captain ownership obviously going to be important to think about on the slate as well. All right, ownership. Oh, I love when their menu just randomly collapses as you try to click things. Super. So here, do you guys want to watch me fumble with this menu for 5 minutes? All right, let's see. All right, so look, I'm expanding it, right? I'm expanding it. Oh, expanded a different one. You go down, and it closes. You expand it. No, it closes. Okay. How about now? Let's expand it. And it closes. This is the worst. Why does it do that? That's not good. All right, let me see if I can find NBA Showdown ownership Stokastic on Google instead. Again, great site. One of the best sites to get your data from. I'll fully vouch for both them and Unabated. Fuck, man. Could not pull up that ownership for the life of me. Here we go. No, these are projections. Hold on. I'm going to get this right, guys. Okay, ownership. Oh, we got it. All right. Took a lot of clicking around. Bad JavaScript. We made it work. Wasn't paying attention until I started talking about Dick again. That's how I get people motivated here. Talking about Grady Dick and double entendre. I'm like, we had to watch Sabrina Carpenter's Netflix special because my wife is aspiring Gen Z, even though she's not. And we had to watch it. All Sabrina Carpenter does is sex puns, and it's like she's, I think, an okay performer or whatever. But oh my god, I know people like her out there, but I just like it's the most fucking transparent shtick I've ever seen. Drives me insane. User interface also drives me insane, but we got it. Karl-Anthony Towns, your top objective play overall, 64% for him, 20% at captain. So again, you're not sneaking out anybody playing Towns. If you're going to play Towns at captain, consider leaving salary on the table, playing a lower owned guy. But Towns to me is the best play on the slate, highest ceiling here. So if I'm not playing it at captain, I think I'm trying to just jam in more studs overall. But Towns, to me, he's worth whatever ownership you're going to have him at today. Scotty Barnes, 55% compared to 12% in captain for Barnes. 11.4 salary for him. Higher salary, lower projection than Towns. So that's basically how that comes out in the wash for me. That said, Barnes I like a lot. High upside. Captain ownership feels light compared to Towns. Given those guys basically project the same. So Barnes, certainly a worthwhile pivot to play captain. And just a little bit under-owned, it looks like. Davion Mitchell, we got 51% compared to 5% at captain. I would not play Davion Mitchell at captain. That is one of those showdown fallacies we talk about. You got to have enough points there at captain to get in, unless every Knicks player and Raptors player you put into a lineup is going to put up 50 regular points. Then you maybe needed that captain to give you 15 that then gets 1.5x. But it's not likely to happen for Davion Mitchell, so I honestly would fade that 5% captain ownership. Even it's going to look appealing just based on the math. Jalen Brunson, got 49% compared to 11% at captain. Brunson, your pivot points. Towns for sure. I certainly think Towns is the better play here. Match-wise, just don't know how he would really fail logistically. But Brunson at 11% ownership, I think that's your pivot point, half the ownership. That feels more than fair, given that I just wouldn't have him as good of a play overall. Anunoby, 46% compared to 8%. Lower owned captains, I think Barrett could hit a captain at 7%. Bridges, tough for me to expect him to hit, but 4% captain ownership does not look that bad. Grady Dick at 4%. He's got that ceiling for sure. It has to come in all real life points, but it's still there. And then you're under 10%, guys. If you just want to try to get one in, guess under 20. Precious Achiuwa, he's projected today for 17.8 minutes. A decent 18 fantasy point projection would work better in the flex, but Achiuwa is low owned enough that maybe he can spike enough to make a lineup. Jonathan Mobo, 11% ownership, runs some risk with the Olynyk back in that his minutes could evaporate. Boucher is now being squeezed minutes-wise. There's nothing preventing Mobo from losing minutes to a guy like Boucher. So Mobo, not bad ownership, but tough to love. Agbaji plays a good amount of minutes here, projected today for 25.4 minutes, under 10% ownership. Wouldn't play him at captain still, but that's not bad in the flex. Jameson Battle, under 10%. The minutes are low. Would rather have Agbaji, but the price tag of $1,200 for Battle certainly looks okay. Kelly Olynyk could be very productive in his run of minutes. I just wish this price tag were not $6,600. You're asking a lot for him in a limited run of minutes. If Pirtle were to get in foul trouble, I would still question how many minutes Olynyk could play because he is coming off a lot of time and not playing and only played 15 minutes in his return to the lineup over the weekend. Theoretically, if you were to not play Pirtle, Olynyk should get like a boost in projection just for the fact that like he's your leverage point against Pirtle being hurt, leaving the game, getting foul trouble, all that stuff. Tyler Kolek, not a play. Toppin, not a play. Daddier, not a play. The Knicks guy is just not really a play. And Boucher out of the rotation last game, so he doesn't look like a play either. Let's sim some lineups here. Let's see what we get on that front. Hopefully that was a helpful way to look at ownership, but if it wasn't, we're trying. That's all I can do. All right, we're going to generate 5,000 lineups here for the showdown. We'll have them compete 10,000 times. We'll see what we get. Of course, prop betting markets unabated coming up in 9 minutes as well, so we'll hit those as best we can, showing towns in, showing towns out. All you guys make the decisions for yourself. And of course, if you appreciate this content, it's a weird NBA schedule this week. I'll still be here for the 2 gamers, 3 gamers, whatever we have. It's going to be more appealing, I think, to have those slates when there isn't an NFL showdown on the same day. But I'll be here, of course, Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And, of course, leave a comment if you're watching after the fact, too. It's a limited window of time we have here for these videos because of the way the timing works, showing off on Unabated's projections. And my own is updated as best as I can. So please engage. All right. 33% to first. It's 50K, 150K tournament. So let's run this as it is. My projections not involved here, just Stokastic data. And we'll see what they have for the top ROI lineups for this showdown right now. What you're going to probably see is less Towns captain. I would think maybe some Brunson captain still, but but I think they're going to probably target the 8K guys, 9K guys more for captain here. We'll see what we got. No Cade York like the Monday Night Football showdown. I'll tell you what. That'll be a relief to not see him pressed in everywhere. Compile those results. Compile. It really would be nice if it timed out and did it one of the times that it did that effeminate gesture, but not so much. All right, so Sim gave me what I thought it would. Grady Dick, your number one ROI lineup. Grady Dick, Davion Mitchell are getting the good value in. Jakob Poeltl, Mikal Bridges, RJ Barrett, and Scotty Barnes. They are fading Towns in this lineup. I do not feel good fading Towns in this lineup, but Barnes beating him out in points. Barrett scoring enough to compete with Towns. It makes sense how they would build that. I just really find it hard to believe the Towns would make a winning lineup. Barnes at captain in this number 2 ROI lineup. Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Ochai Agbaji. So in this one, you are fading Towns for Brunson, fading Barrett for Dick. You're also getting Mikal Bridges in the top 2. That's crazy. And at number 3, it's Mikal Bridges at captain, which that's a tough one to see, but it could happen, I suppose. Bridges, Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes. So we're fading Towns again in this one, fading hard as well. But you're getting the 2 wings with Brunson. Theoretically, for Towns to fail, it would probably take a couple Knicks making that lineup just to balance it out. So I could see the logic again. I just don't think it actually hits. This one with Poeltl, I like this a lot more. Poeltl, Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Karl-Anthony Towns, Precious Achiuwa, Scotty Barnes. I'm okay fading Brunson. I would like to get at least one of Barnes or Barrett in a lineup. I do want to get Cat into my lineups as well. And then we're getting more Raptors here who theoretically have to score more points than they normally would just to keep up with the Knicks. Precious Achiuwa, how's he been per minute? So far this year, Precious Achiuwa in a revenge game, he's been averaging 0.86 fantasy points per minute, shooting terribly. 39.7% true shooting, which is awful for a guy that's like usually shooting close to the rim. But I would have him at 1.03 fantasy points per minute today. I do have him highly projected or more highly projected than Stokastic. I Precious Achiuwa at 18.4 fantasy points. They have him at 16.9. So I don't hate this one. Poeltl at captain, I'll just say, was the lineup that I built before the show as well. Poeltl with still getting their good Raptors in, getting Towns in, and then some value plays. OG Anunoby is the 5th ROI lineup here, or 5th highest ROI. Anunoby, Davion Mitchell, Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Agbaji, RJ Barrett, and Scotty Barnes. So you're getting different captains for these overall. Definitely more Mikal Bridges than I would expect. Overall, top ROI players. Jamison Battle, 17% at captain. That probably means a Battle lineup 1 in the showdown, maybe a couple times here in the sim. I don't think you actually want to play Jamison Battle at captain. That seems like a bad play. Not an NBA guy. Why are there so few games this week? Because of the NBA Cup. Weird things being scheduled around that. No RJ captains in there. That's true. And using the top ROI this morning. Well, there you go. It's going to look different at different times of the day based on the Vegas total and all that moving around. Top exposures right now for the flex. You're getting Davion Mitchell, 53% in the flex compared to the pool's 48. So he looks like good chalk as one of the more reliable value plays at 2,800. Josh Hart getting 51% in the flex compared to 37%. So a little more Josh Hart, I would think, in lineups without Towns, especially assuming where Towns doesn't get as many rebounds as usual, a few more flow Hart's way. I think that would make sense. Mikal Bridges, 43% compared to 32. Scotty Barnes, 43% in the flex compared to 41, basically flat on that. Definitely a Bridges stand, though, or pro Bridges stand. Brunson, 37% compared to 40, so they're a little bit low on him, but mostly flat. And Anunoby, mostly flat, 36 compared to 37. And Precious Achiuwa, almost double the field, 28% compared to 15. Your most negative leverage guys, they want less campaign, 13% compared to 30. Towns in the flex, they want less, 26% compared to 43. I just don't agree. Towns to me is like your McCaffrey on an NFL slate for the most part. I just think whether it's a captain, whether it's in the flex, Lamar Jackson might be a better analogy for this year, given Christian McCaffrey mostly sucked in the NFL. But I think Towns to me, the floor is too high, the ceiling is too high. I'd have a hard time fading him, but maybe that's the DFS of it. As you fade Towns, you make more money. Miles McBride, 17% in the flex compared to 29. I did have him as a better value than Stokastic does. I have him scoring 21 fantasy points today. They have him at 17.2. So McBride, I would have a pro stand here, but they are down on him. Jakob Poeltl, lower on him as well, 27% compared to 36. I got less Poeltl in the flex than they did too. So I guess I'd be with that. Jonathan Mobo, 7% compared to 10%. So low on him. Brunson, 37 compared to 40. Talked about that already. And OG Anunoby, basically flat. Captain-wise, highest exposure going to Scotty Barnes. So they're flipping the exposure for Towns and Barnes, it looks like. Honestly, they're fading Towns in the flex and at captain, which I don't agree with, but the Sims are the Sims. As always, please feel free to default to what the Sim is saying, given that's made by a team of top daily fantasy sports players, and I'm just one guy who's had mild success relatively. RJ Barrett, 11% compared to 7. Brunson, 14% of captain compared to 10. OG Anunoby, 16% compared to 9. Anunoby would have to hit his ceiling, and you would need 4 of the other guys to give you like 35 to 45 would be my guess. That's how Anunoby can win. He's kind of like the rich man's version of those Jameson Battle lineups or even Davion Mitchell captain lineups where it's like a guy who's not as highly priced, who's not as good, but if he gives you enough points and you jam in everybody else, that guy can hit at captain is sort of the thing. So get the logic on Anunoby, but a 2x stand on Anunoby does feel like quite a bit here. What else to know? Should we look at other captains? Maybe that's the thing. Weird captains or just captains I like. Here's your best Towns captain lineups, which is going to be priority for me no matter what. Towns with Davion Mitchell, Jacoby Walter. Jacoby Walter projected for still about 18 minutes today. I'd have about 12.5 fantasy points, which is flat with Stokastic's projection. But Jacoby Walter here, Mikal Bridges again, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes. This one, Towns, Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick. Mikal Bridges again, Precious Achiuwa, Scotty Barnes. Number 3 is Towns, Davion Mitchell, Jacoby again. Jacoby Walter, that is, in case you're not on a first-name basis like I am. Jalen Brunson, Precious Achiuwa, and Scotty Barnes. So Barnes is making it in everywhere. They will not let you fade Barnes for the most part, it looks like. Brunson captains. Brunson, Davion, Poeltl, Mikal Bridges, Precious Achiuwa, Barrett. So you're still getting Bridges in this one. Weirdly, that's so odd. So we're getting all Towns and Barnes, and then if you're playing Brunson at captain, you're getting Barrett instead. I don't know why that would possibly be in terms of why a sim would do that, but that's what you're getting. Brunson at number 2 ROI lineup. Davion Mitchell, Karl Anthony Towns, Miles McBride, OJ Abaji, RJ Barrett. Number 3 is Brunson, Mitchell, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Towns again, RJ Barrett. It's a lot of RJ Barrett with Brunson. Maybe just play. Here's your first one with Barnes. Brunson, Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, RJ Barrett, and Barnes. That's weird. That's a 5-1 Toronto with Brunson, the only one who makes it. Brunson, if he were to have an outlier day, he would theoretically kind of ice Towns. He would definitely be icing OG Anunoby a little bit, Hart a little bit, Bridges a little bit. That's an interesting one. It has one dupe on it, so it might not be too sneaky, but I don't mind that lineup. Just getting away from the fact that the top ROI ones are all with Barrett. It's a leverage against Stokastic players. I think this lineup looks good. What else are we getting at captain? Hart. Like Josh Hart, you probably need like an OT to get there. Hart, Grady Dick, Mikal Bridges, Miles McBride, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes. Yeah, I think Towns not making it. Like Towns not making it and Brunson not making it makes sense because Hart to hit his ceiling has to have more rebounds, has to have a little more points, probably has to have a few more assists too. So you theoretically pull for both those guys if he were to hit. Hart with Jacoby Walter, Poeltl, Bridges, Anunoby, and Barrett again. So fading Brunson, fading Towns. Number 3 here, Hart, Davion Mitchell, Poeltl, Brunson, Achiuwa, and Barrett. So I would think if you play Hart at captain, you need to have only one of Brunson and Towns in. Just how that would work naturally. Seems like Brunson and Barnes together is a way to get low round. I mean, it does, at least based on the users that are going to be taking lineups from Stokastic today. Who else have we looked at? I feel like we saw enough Mikal Bridges already, but Mikal Bridges, Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Bridges, Davion Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Towns, Agbaji. This is a weird one. This would have to be Toronto gets blown out, I think. If you're going to have Barnes and Barrett and Poeltl all fail. But it's interesting that that's definitely an outcome that won't get played as much. Bridges, Davion Mitchell, Brunson, Josh Hart, Agbaji, Barnes. That second one made me think a little bit. That's kind of a fun one here to leverage against, because I think everybody's going to play this like Toronto's competitive. They're at home. It's not a big spread. But if there is, a chance the Knicks run away with the Sun, we've seen them beat much better teams like Denver. Though honestly, Denver this year and Toronto, maybe not as different as they should be. That is one way to get away from at least an obvious approach would be to play the blowout. And the Knicks blowout side would be much more logical. If you play the Toronto blowout side, you're going to be way more alone on an island for sure. Anybody else looking at captain? I feel like we've covered most of the main guys. Pirtle, look at his lineups. Look at the Toronto side. Pirtle with Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Towns, Precious Achiuwa, Scotty Barnes. Number 2 is Pirtle with Davion Mitchell, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes. Number 3, Pirtle with Davion Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Achiuwa, and RJ Barrett. Good mix on those Pirtle lineups. I think Pirtle captain to me makes a lot of sense as like a guy, again, has a better ceiling than some of the cheaper guys. I would prefer him to an OG Anunoby generally. The center minutes getting squeezed doesn't help him out that much. But I like Pirtle captain. I think that's the one. That's the one I'm probably going to put in for the one lineup I throw in tonight. Who else is worth a captain look? We didn't look at Scotty Barnes captains deliberately. We'll do that now. Barnes with Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Agbaji. Barnes with Davion Mitchell. Again, you're getting Mitchell in all these. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Kelly Olynyk, Miles McBride. Number 3 with Barnes, Davion Mitchell, Jacoby Walter, Pirtle, Bridges, and Barrett. Yeah, Mitchell's going to get into a lot of lineups. I know people out there don't like Mitchell as much as I do. And honestly, he's not a great usage guy when you have other legit players. Is assisting at a pretty good clip, about a 30% assist rate on the year. But if you want to get away from the very obvious value, I don't know that you should on a showdown, but just moving away from Davion Mitchell is going to be the move. Like, he's just getting into everything here. And I like him, but like, he's getting into everything, and he absolutely doesn't need to get into everything. He just works because of the price tag on him in the projection. We'll look at RJ Barrett here, and then we should be good. We'll look at the prop betting markets on Unabated. We'll be on the deeper dive with Josh Egelman at 6 p.m. today. It's only a 45-minute show for the one gamer, but go check that out if you want more takes here. If the data moves around, I'll also have updates there as well. Your RJ Barrett lineups, number 1 is Barrett with Davion Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, OJ Agbaji, Precious Achiuwa. I don't mind that one. Look, I like Barnes a lot. But if Barrett hits a captain, Barnes is less likely to get there. Davion Mitchell maybe assisting a little bit more. Agbaji taking a few shots away. I think that makes sense if you're not going to play Barnes. Number 2 with Barrett, Brunson, Jamison Battle, Towns, Miles McBride, OG Anunoby. That one's fine. Getting value guys here. Not Davion Mitchell value either, which is good when you're going to max out that salary like they are on this one. And number 3 would be RJ Barrett, Davion Mitchell, Karl Anthony Towns, Miles McBride, Precious Achiuwa, and Scotty Barnes. Yeah, to me, like these Barrett lineups make sense. Some of the Brunson ones make sense. Some of the Josh Hart ones made sense. The Pirtle ones make sense, and I think the Towns ones and obviously the Barnes ones, those have the highest upside. But if I'm playing one, it would still be Pirtle for me. Nothing changed me or dissuaded me from going Pirtle at captain if you're trying to get the biggest upside. All right, let's go to Unabated next. One gamer here, but we'll look at the lines with Towns in. We'll look at the lines with Towns out because we don't have an answer to that one yet. I'm logging in on this tab right now, so hopefully we'll be good to go. And check out this video where you can learn more about Unabated's conditional NBA projections and how they can change the game for you in NBA betting. Make yourself to a better better. Hey, you want to see picks that are a slam dunk in your betting markets? Filter there, but is DeJounte Murray in? Let's look at his markets with that. Is Zion Williamson in? No, of course not. Let's look at his numbers. And that way, it's a real splash play. Check out the news and updates all day long. And you get to see a lot of great stuff about news items that will paint this town red, black, and white. You like graphs? Do you like graphs? I didn't really have great improv for the news one. Graphs are here, though. Graphs are here. Imagine that DJ Pauly D saying it. Graphs are here. That's how he would say it. Great day for Italian Americans, based on some of the news out there. Count your money, too. Don't go to McDonald's in Altoona because they'll snitch on you. Unabated. Go to Unabated. Use promo code SPLASH. And then you will get everything you've ever wanted in betting. That's a promise. Let's go to Unabated. Here we go. That one got weird even by the standards of the Unabated voiceover, but you got it. Thanks for going through it all, captain by captain, like you do for the show. I appreciate that, Effect MD. I'm trying to make this worthwhile content one way or another. And hey, we'll take the emojis too. All right, custom projections. We got unabated ones out now. Let's see that. And let's run it. First, let's run it with Towns in. So Towns missed last game. Who knows how we're going to get it going today, but let's see what the lines would look like if Towns plays, at least for PRAs here. We should start with points like we always do, right? I have a rhythm I normally do here. Let's stick with my rhythm. All right, points lines right now, assuming that Towns is in. What are your best bets? The best bet right now, assuming Towns would play, would be under 13.5 points for Josh Hart, playable for PrizePicks and Underdog, also bettable on DK Sportsbook and FanDuel at minus 125 odds and minus 122 respectively. That's under 13.5 points for Josh Hart, playable if you want to assume that Karl-Anthony Towns plays. If you want to wait until Towns is ruled in or ruled out, just make a mental note here. You should take this bet the moment that you know Towns is in. Hart taking the under on 13.5 points. Jakob Poeltl, this one's unaffected, and honestly, I think projection-wise, they don't change this stuff, so unaffected by Towns playing or not, even though theoretically it would be a little bit easier for Poeltl if Towns were out. But anyway, if he's in, it already looks good for the over, so that's good for the case that he would be out as well. Jakob Poeltl over 14.5 rebounds, plus 105 odds, gets you 9.2% EV. That one, not playable on FanDuel, PrizePicks or Underdog. We want to see over an 8% sim EV to take these bets. But Jakob Poeltl over 14.5 points looks good now. If Towns are out, maybe the defense gets marginally better because of Towns being a fucking sloth guarding the rim. But I think right now this would be a good bet to take whether Towns were in or out. Over 14.5 points for Jakob Poeltl on DK Sportsbook, plus 105 odds. These other bets here, probably would not touch these, all under an 8% EV. Let's see if Towns were out. What would look better? Assume a lot more on the overs would be my guess. All right, so yeah, Brunson would be an absolute smash over if Towns were out. Looking at these lines make me think that Towns not playing is unlikely here because that's a tremendous EV. It's not really middling very much. But Brunson over 26.5 points if Towns were out would have 32.9% EV. It'd also be playable on PrizePicks and Underdog, 24% EV on PrizePicks over 26.5 points, 29.1% EV on Underdog over 26 points. That Brunson line would be the first thing you should take if Towns were out today. Anunoby, this would also be affected again if Towns is out. All the lines go up. 23.4% EV for over 17.5 points on FanDuel Sportsbook at minus 118 odds. Also playable on PrizePicks over 18, 19.9% EV. And on Underdog, 13.4% EV on over 18.5. Looks playable as well on DK Sportsbook for Anunoby over 17.5, 20.2% EV there. Basically, run for Brunson, Anunoby if you know Towns gets ruled out. Their overs here are way too soft. Mikal Bridges, same thing here, over 16.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook, minus 111 odds. Gets you 20.5% EV. On PrizePicks, this again assumes that Towns is out. So these top three lines, only play it if you know Towns is out. 17.1% EV on PrizePicks, 16.2% EV on DK Sportsbook at minus 120, and on FanDuel, 20.5% EV on over 16.5 points, and minus 111 odds for Mikal Bridges. All the Knicks up top. This Poeltl line, though, looks good wherever. So 9.2% EV over 14.5 points. So that one looked good, assuming Towns is in. It looks good, assuming Towns is out. So you can play it wherever right now. Poeltl at plus 105 odds looks very good, though. Anytime you see this high of an EV over that 8% threshold, plus money on it, you should run to take those. Over 14.5 points on Jakob Poeltl. All right, rebounds next. And let's see what it looks like with Cat in again. So we'll do the same process here. And let's sim it out. So assuming that Towns is in, if Towns is in, so you could place this one right now on PrizePicks, add it to your card, and worst case, if Towns were ruled out, it would get voided. 14.2% EV on over 12 rebounds for Karl-Anthony Towns. You also could have played on DK Sportsbook, where it would get voided same way. Over 12.5 rebounds there, 9.6% EV. And on FanDuel Sportsbook, over 12.5 rebounds there at minus 102 odds, gets you 11.2% EV. So all these lines here, the DK Sportsbook FanDuel one, you can bet that one on Towns no matter what, because if he's in, the lines don't move. If he's out, you just get voided. So there you go. Towns is a good bet to take. Bridges right now, the under would not look as good if Towns were ruled out. So if Towns is in, this looks like a good line to take. Bridges 12.9% EV on a pick'em, under 4 rebounds for him. Not playable on DK Sportsbook and not playable on FanDuel. Just PrizePicks for Bridges under 4 rebounds, assuming that Towns is in. Jakob Poeltl, about 7.8% EV, which on a short NBA slate, we could take it. That's good on Underdog and PrizePicks right now for under 10.5 rebounds for him. Would be unaffected theoretically by Towns being in or out. And you probably don't want it on FanDuel or DK Sportsbook. The other ones here, not quite as good, so we'll skip them over. If Towns is out, what looks good? Again, this is the power of the conditional NBA projections. You'd see both sides of the equation. And if you start to realize how this works, and I'm obviously trying to explain it pretty well to you, like the Towns lines, if Towns assumed in, great. Opponents lines when Towns assumed in, great. Then the ones where the player might be out, you then take those the moment you know the player is out. So Anunoby, I would not take this line right now with the Towns being assumed out. But the second you know he's out, this looks like a great line. So 21.7% EV for OG Anunoby, over 5 rebounds. He'd project for 6.2 if Towns were out. That's a good one on PrizePicks. Still playable on DK Sportsbook as well, over 4.5 rebounds. And on FanDuel Sportsbook, over 4.5 rebounds at -142. So that one's playable everywhere besides Underdog right now for Anunoby, over 5 rebounds or over 4.5. But only play that one once you know Towns has been ruled out. Grady Dick, this one's unaffected by Towns, 19% EV on under 3 rebounds for him. That's playable on PrizePicks, also playable on DK Sportsbook and FanDuel. Same lines for both, under 2.5 rebounds at +120 for Grady Dick today, under 2.5 rebounds. Ochai Agbaji, over 3.5 rebounds at +132, would be unaffected by Towns being in or out. So you can play this one right now. 8.4% EV for FanDuel Sportsbook, a little bit under the threshold, but still playable on PrizePicks, over 3 rebounds. And their usual pick'em line here at -118 odds. Jakob Poeltl, you could play it at 7.8% EV on PrizePicks and Underdog, under 10.5 rebounds. I probably would not want that one on DK Sportsbook or FanDuel. And that's it for rebounds. Assists, we'll look at the conditional projections again for Towns being in or out. Assuming he is in. All right, so assuming Towns is in, another bet you could take no matter what. 9.2% EV on over 2.5 assists for Towns. It's -154 odds. I probably would not play it on PrizePicks, not available on Underdog, and I wouldn't play it on FanDuel either. So just DK Sportsbook, Karl-Anthony Towns over 2.5 assists. Looks good, and again, if he doesn't play, it just gets voided, so you'd be good on that side as well. Scotty Barnes, under 8 assists, looks good to add to your PrizePicks Pick'ems, 8.7% EV, unaffected. There's nobody to worry about on the Raptors being questionable or not. Not playable to me on DraftKings Sportsbook or FanDuel. And the rest of these don't look that good. Let's see what would look good if Towns is out. Or Towns is out. There's value in over 5.5 assists for Josh Hart. 14.6% EV at -108 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. Would also be a good one to add to your PrizePicks Pick'ems. Over 5.5 for Josh Hart. Gets you 10% EV there. Same thing for Underdog. And you could play it on DK Sportsbook as well, assuming that Towns is out. Over 5.5 assists for Hart, -120 odds. Mikal Bridges would also give you some pretty decent EV, 9.9% EV at +134 odds for over 3.5 assists for Mikal Bridges on FanDuel Sportsbook. Also be a good one to add to PrizePicks, 9.3% EV there, assuming that Towns gets ruled out. Scotty Barnes, 8.7% EV on under 8 assists. That one's playable on PrizePicks Pick'ems right now. I would probably not play it on DK Sportsbook or FanDuel on those odds, and the other one's not playable. So you got a couple more bets to add in here, assuming that Towns gets ruled out. Last but not least, we'll look at some PRAs. If you're tuning in for the NBA DFS sim lineups, actually, let me go to make sure Towns is in first. If you came for that part, just scroll back. I did that a little bit earlier than usual, so go check that out if you wish to. But your lines right now for Towns being in. Josh Hart's PRAs would look good for the under. Seems like they are skewing a little bit higher, maybe to cover for the fact that Towns is questionable. As a result, you're getting 11.2% EV on under 28.5 PRAs for Josh Hart at -113 odds. Still getting 9% EV as well on under 28.5 PRAs on Underdog and PrizePicks. These would look good, again, assuming that Towns gets ruled out. So these would be ones to add in on the assumption that Towns gets ruled out. Yes. Because you don't want to take the under. Really, I would say until we know Towns' status, don't touch these right now. These two unders here, honestly, for me, I should probably skip over them. Unders reflecting Towns' status of being in, they'd be ones that take the moment that you know that Towns gets ruled in. But I don't want to give you guys another thing to have to think about here. But basically, these Hart, Brunson, the Towns line looks good no matter what. The Hart and Brunson lines here, the unders are only playable if Towns is in. So I'm trying really hard to caveat these things as we go, guys. If I'm too confusing explaining it, please let me know. But basically, these top two lines are assuming Towns is in, so only take the under when you know that Towns is confirmed in. Brunson, 10.3% EV on under 37.5 PRAs, assuming Towns is in. Towns himself, if he's in, this one's a good one to take no matter what. Over 39.5 PRAs on an underdog pick'em. I like to 10.3% EV. Close to playable on PrizePicks, but you probably don't want it on PrizePicks or DK Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook for Towns over 40.5 at -106. PRAs looks good for him. You're getting 9.1% EV there. And that one, again, if Towns is out, just gets voided, so you can play it as it is right now. RJ Barrett, unaffected by Towns' status, 10.3% EV on over 33 PRAs. That one's playable on PrizePicks, not available at the same line on Underdog. You probably don't want it on DK Sportsbook or FanDuel. And then if Towns is out, all the Knicks are going to look a lot better in their PRAs, so prepare emotionally to see that. But basically, you have bets on either side of the equation. This comes down to you having your notification set up. If you're an Unabated member, they have a Discord that gives you immediate alerts as well. Of course, you could also on Twitter just have notifications set up for Underdog NBA, whatever NBA product you want out there. Just keep that in mind here. But basically, for a lot of the stuff, just reacting the moment that the Towns news hits is going to be the most important thing for you. For Jalen Brunson, if Towns were out, he would have a lot of value in over 36.5 PRAs. It looked like a great pick on PrizePicks with 30% EV. Still good on DK Sportsbook, 27.3% EV on over 37.5 at -110 odds. And then on FanDuel, 25.7% EV on over 37.5 PRAs, assuming that Towns would be out today. OG Anunoby would have 24.8% EV on his line, available only on Underdog, over 25.5 PRAs for an Underdog pick'em. Mikal Bridges, assuming that Towns were out, would have 20.4% EV on over 23.5 PRAs. That's good for your pick'ems on Underdog. Playable on PrizePicks as well at over 24. And DK Sportsbook would look very good as well. 19.5% EV on over 23.5. FanDuel, same thing, but a little bit less EV. 18.6% EV on over 23.5. At -122 odds. Josh Hart, the least EV of the Knicks starters. 11.4% EV. If we do get Towns out again, over 28.5 PRAs, -105 odds. Not playable. PrizePicks Underdog. DK Sportsbook is the only one for that. Do I have a personal opinion on if Towns plays or not? No, I'm not Nostradamus. Try my best, both visually, try to look like him. No, I think that, I mean, I think it's a true 50-50. He didn't play last game. The Q tag's running pretty late. If I were to say a slight lean, I guess I would lean towards him not playing. But honestly, with the way I've approached it data-wise, like I'm going to have to redo everything if he's out. So I have approached it playing-wise like he's in. But that is normally the way to approach things, to assume the guy's in. That if the guy comes out, you change everything around. So I'm assuming he's in right now. But obviously, you're going to have the most EV if he's out based on all these betting markets we're looking at right now. So for DFS, easier to assume he's in. For betting, more valuable to assume that he's out, basically. RJ Barrett does not have any conditionals with Towns here, so you can play this one. A 10.3% EV on over 33 PRAs. That one's good on PrizePicks. Would not play it on Underdog, where it's over 33.5, and not playable as well on FanDuel or Underdog, or excuse me, our DK Sportsbook, where it's also over 33.5. But that's it, guys. We did it. 47 minutes on a one-game slate. Yeehaw! But hey, please, I couldn't do these 47 minutes if it weren't thanks to our sponsor, Unabated. Check them out. $30 off with the promo code SPLASH with all their betting data and tools. You get the conditional NBA projections. You can also get market-based projections that work well for college basketball, college football, NFL, especially early in the week. All the other sports. You have a lot of great ways to make money in betting. And really, if you're playing DFS and you enjoy DFS, mixing betting into your repertoire would be a very smart thing to do, because you make a lot more money with products like Unabated, some other ones we talk about as well in the industry, than you are, just going to night to night in DFS. It's the reality of things. But please go check out Unabated. Also, go check out Stokastic, 15% off, the best discount and only discount they have going right now. And it applies in perpetuity. So get a monthly membership and get 15% off for basically the entire 8-month period then that we get affiliate fees. So it works out pretty well for you. Works out well for me. Check it out. Link in the description for Stokastic to get their data and tools that you see me show on screen here every day. Underdog, going to play some of the pick'ems I showed you. $1,000 with bonus cash on Underdog with the promo code SPLASH. And yeah, that's it. For now, though, gamble responsibly, even so it's money time here. And hey, weird NBA week here. I'm still going to be here. My promise to you is to be here every Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. And I'm going to keep seeing it through no matter what weird games we get NBA schedule-wise with the NBA Cup going on. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for more. I'll also be back on the deeper dive on Stokastic at 6 p.m. If you need another fucking hour of me talking about the slate, I'll be doing that with my pal Josh Engelman. I'll see you guys there. Enjoy your days. Enjoy your showdowns. And, of course, good luck. Bye-bye.